Hello, this is Marian coming to you from seemstobesew.com. Today, this month's lesson for electric quilt is featuring a technique in the software that I believe is really only for EQ7 users and up, including EQ Stitch. I'm trying to focus just on what EQ7 does and not EQ Stitch, but I cannot guarantee that the lesson doesn't focus somewhat on EQ Stitch as well. I have tried to keep it out of it, but I don't really know whether it will work or not. So with that said, I'm going to move on to the lesson. Today's lesson is about a question that was brought up last month in the Learning EQ7 group on Facebook called Learning EQ7. It's a really great group for beginners and advanced users, even for me alike, because I can learn something and everybody else can learn something also. It's not just oriented towards, one type of user. It's oriented for every type of user. So you might think about joining it if you're so inclined. I'll leave the link for it on the tutorial page at my blog. This month's lesson is featuring using embroidery designs on your quilt layouts. When you're designing your quilt, sometimes you want to add quilting stencils or something in that regard, and I can see I have a little extra embroidery design on my quilt, but I wanted to show you how you can use embroidery designs, in particular machine embroidery designs, on your quilts so that you could stitch them out in the hoop instead of doing it by normal free motion abilities or using hand quilting methods. I think some long arms give you the ability to do embroidery designs, in particular outline type designs. With the exception of the Baltimore designs I have in this quilt, all of these other designs are specifically machine embroidered quilt outlines. There are quite a few places on the web where you can purchase Quilting Designs. One of them, and it's one of my favorites, is Creative Kiwi Embroidery. She has quite a nice selection of quilt outlines, and quite a lot of them. I don't think she has too many that are borders in particular, or corners, and when you're dealing with a quilt border, you really need to have something that is for a border. It's very difficult to use a square in a border unless you're doing a block type border. And that's the only time I would recommend using this type of design in a border, unless you were trying to butt them up against each other. And I don't even want to go there today. I just want to do the basics of this process. Another one is Embroidery Library. They have many quilt designs, and these outlines usually only are $1 each. So you could find the border and the size that you need and the corner, and you're going to pay $2. And the best thing about machine embroidered quilt designs is most of them are continuous line designs. So that means it will do the entire design, and the only jump stitch you might actually have is where, if you haven't butted it up right next to it so it flows nicely, it will have a little jump going to the next design so it can continue on to do its little stitching. Normally, when you have continuous line designs, you would use what is called a continuous border hoop. And most of the major machine companies do have a continuous border hoop, and you might want to check into those. I think they might go wider than 6 inches now. They may only go, I bought one from my brother or my Viking, I can't remember which one, but I can't remember if it's a 5-inch wide or a 6-inch wide hoop, but it's at least a 5-inch wide hoop. So it's really cool because the only thing you literally just move your hoop down and you slide the fabric through. It's very cool how that works. Another one is designs in stitches. I really love Karen's designs. All of her designs are really great, but she has some really fun quilting in the hoop designs for quilting itself. She shows you some corner effects, quilting frame effects. She has some sashiko designs. So she has some really great designs. I have loved Karen's designs for many, many years. So the next one is Scale Down House. Missy has beautiful designs. She makes many designs now for the electric quilt dies. She has a lot of them. I mean, as you can see here, there are a lot of them for AccuQuilt. And if you have the dies that feature this, I'm guessing that you could incorporate these into your quilt with the dies. And she has other really great designs, but as you can see, she offers a lot of really great designs. Now, almost every good, well, I'm not going to say almost every, a lot of digitizers have quilt designs on the web. These are some of my favorites that are on the web, and these are places I've shopped for years. There are many digitizers you want to watch out for, though, too, because a lot of them use auto-digitizing software to create their designs. And what that means is they take the image, they put it in the software, and they automatically let the software choose what to do. They set it for an outline, and they don't check to see if it's continuous or not. They just set it on the web and try to sell it as a design. Those kind of digitizers don't last very long because someone like me, who knows a good design from a bad design, knows that I want my quilting stencils to be a continuous line. Now I get it if there's a jump stitch, once in a while, because you can't always have it. If you have designs that have holes in them and that kind of thing, sometimes you do have to have a jump. But a good digitizer knows how to place a jump stitch, so it's easier when you're done to go back and clip those jumps, so you don't have a lot of teeny little jumps. Instead, you have a nice wide jump that it's very easy to cut, and that's the kind of jump you want to look for if you're new to machine embroidery. So, these are my favorite sites for this type of design, and now I'm going to show you how to import embroidery designs into your software. Unfortunately, I do own EQ Stitch, and like I said earlier, I cannot guarantee to you that some part of this lesson is not going to be EQ Stitch oriented. But my biggest reason, one of my biggest reasons, not really my biggest reason, for upgrading to EQ7 was the fact that we could add embroidery designs. Now, I'm not sure, it might have been an EQ6, but I never used EQ6. I had EQ5 installed. I owned an EQ6, but back then I reinstalled my operating system so often. I think I went through all my activations, and so I didn't know that they could be restored. I didn't know how the process all worked and such. So back then, I wasn't learning the software, so I just didn't. At some point, I just didn't reinstall my EQ6. So I don't really know whether EQ6 did embroidery designs or not. I'm fairly sure it didn't. But in this case, I'm going to show you today how to import your design. I'm going to take this off because it's really bugging me. Okay, see now? That's prettier. Okay, so let's go up here to our libraries. We want to come down to our Embellishment Library. And this is the big difference here. It's that the Embellishment Library is the library I'm fairly sure comes with Electric Quilt 7. The Stitching Library is what comes with EQ Stitch. I'm fairly sure that it didn't come with EQ7 itself. I'm almost 99.9% sure of it. So I can't install EQ7 by itself, because once you install EQ Stitch, the activation takes over your EQ7 ability. So I would have to rebuy Electric Quilt 7 just to find out, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to spend that kind of money just to find that out. So you want to go to your Embellishment Library. Now, as you can see here, this is the default library that it brings you into, your normal library, which I do believe comes with EQ7. It says EQ7 libraries. I believe it would incorporate that. So you have here designs from Cactus Punch, more designs from Cactus Punch, FAP Embroidery, and Viking Embroidery, all contributed designs. I don't think you get the actual designs themselves. I think you have to buy these designs, but you do get the ability to try them on, per se. So the samples that I used mainly are from the beautiful Baltimore set and the quilt. This one here is here, for instance. And there was a little border set that I used, traditional blocks and borders, which I used for the borders, with the exception of this one here. The three here are all from these borders along here. As you can see, there's quite a few borders that you can work with. The bad part about these borders is there are no corners. And you know, we need to have a corner. Whether we change the design in our corner or not, we still want our corners to look filled. How do you, I've never been good at borders and quilting, that kind of thing. But the one thing I've always tried to do is make sure I get a corner that works well with the border that I'm quilting. So no matter whether I use the same design or not, I still try to incorporate something into my corner. And I believe that all quilters do that, and some of them do it beautifully. Mind you, I've never been good at it, but I know many quilters who are very good at it. I tend to go very simple. If I'm going to do a quilted border like this, I'm going to stay simple. I'm not going to do major feathers and all that kind of stuff. That's just not me. And as much as I love them, I don't have the patience. I'm let's get it done. Once I get to the border, I just want to get the quilt done. So that's why I love the idea of being able to stitch my borders with this type of design, because it wouldn't matter to me if I have to do a lot of rehooping. I would absolutely do it because it would go very quickly. So let me show you how to add. It's like adding anything in Electric Quilt. You want to go to your library, and when you first open this, there's nothing here. It doesn't say My Custom Library or anything like that. Instead, it just has the My Libraries, and you want to add a library where it gives you the name that you typed. And the first one I did was Embroidery Library, because the designs I'm going to use today are from Embroidery Library. So I'm going to import some more designs that I've put on my desktop, and I'm going to choose from embroidery files. I don't have any projects that I'm aware of that have embroidery files, so I can't import any. But as you can see, I've already been trying this today, because I've only just learned how to do all of this today. So I can't believe it. I mean, it's one of the major reasons why I bought the software, and 3 years later I'm just learning how to do it. So I'm going to import these 5 designs. I've already imported this one, so I don't need to know how to do that. So when I do this, I select one design, I press down Shift, and it will highlight all of those for me, leaving the one that I don't need. Then I can click Open, and it will bring up all of the open ones in the Import Results window. This is where we then want to take and select them all again, and copy, go to my library and paste. And there they are again. Now we want to save our library, and they are saved forever in our library. Now, these aren't adding, I don't think these add the designs themselves. I'm not really sure about that. But the one thing I am sure about is the fact that they act more like an image in the software. There's no way to actually take them out. I don't know if I can export them out or not. Probably an EQ stitch. I can export them out, but I don't really know. Okay, so once I've saved it, I can then close it, and just to make sure they're there. When I reopen it, I go to my library, and here they are for me to add to my sketchbook. This is already in my sketchbook, so I'm just going to add them to my sketchbook. I'm going to close. And just as a little emphasis, just so that you know, they do reappear once you close your sketchbook. They're still in my sketchbook though. And let me show you that. Here they are right here. Okay. Now the other thing I'm going to let you know is that when you're working with Embroidery Designs, you have to use the I'm sorry, I'm back now. I had to adjust my software a bit because with the embellishment tool that you're going to use on layer 3 to add your embroidery designs, you have to, oh, I guess I should move this again. You have to use your little button here that opens up the menu on your right. When you right click here, choose add remove buttons, and if you by default you're going to have quite a few of these that won't show in electric quilt. I purposely undid mine so that I could show you that I'm going to add it. When I add it, it adds this icon over here. This is your set embellishment tool. So now that it's added, I'll be able to add the embroideries. It's different with the quilt. You're not adding quilt blocks or motifs or stencils like when you have here the ability to add blocks, motifs, or stencils. Usually you have blocks and motifs or stencils in these windows if you have them. But in this case, because we are adding stencils or embellishments, embroidery designs in other words, we're going to use this tool here, which is going to give us the blocks that I added to electric quilt, or to the sketchbook embellishment area. So let me go ahead and make a new layout so I can show you how I did these designs. I'll be right back. Okay, so for test purposes only, I have created this quilt layout, which I do by just going to quilt, new quilt, horizontal. I've set it for 3 blocks across and 3 blocks down. The block size is small because these, when you do embroidery designs, you can't resize them in electric quilt and expect them to work right. You have to know the size of your embroidery design and work with it instead of the other way around. So if you have a 4-inch design and you're going to put it in a 9-inch block, it's going to look overwhelming. You really are going to want instead to put that 4-inch block in an area that works inside the block that might be 4 inches itself, or using it in a border or something like that. In that case, you have to think in terms of the fact that even though we have these designs in electric quilt itself, we do need to know the size that we're working with on the embroidery design. That's why the embroidery designs that come with electric quilt are nice, but if you can't do anything with them, then the only thing you're getting is a look for a quilt. It's not the actual quilt you're making. So the better option is to have the quilts in your own, the embroidery designs in your own libraries, so that you can work with them, because you can check the sizes just by going to your, oops, wrong folder, your folder, and coming here often to the PDF file, which is loading, and it will tell you, you can also open your PDF, and it will tell you the size also. And it is right here. This is a basically speaking, a 3-inch wide by 8-inch long border. And so I'm not going to want to put this in an area that's only a 2-inch border, because it's not going to be wide enough to fit. So I need to make sure that my border is at least 3 inches wide. And of course, most borders are going to be more than 8 inches, so that's more than enough to worry about the length of the design. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying you wouldn't be able to put this in a block itself, but this would be and is for a border. So I have already added designs from my own libraries, and I am using the blocks because I did want to show you how to add this type of block. I just didn't want to get into my own designs to go that far, because I don't have a lot of what I call quilt-like designs that are like this in particular. I do have some, but I'd have to really search for them, and I don't think they're on my PC yet, because I have to put everything back from when I reinstalled I have a new desktop, and I'm still putting everything back on it. I don't even have all my software, but I'm getting there. But anyway, so I wanted to show you how you would add this type of design anyway. So let's go ahead and give this a little bit of color. Layer 1. The cool thing about electric quilt is that this is pretty much how you would design, say, a whole cloth quilt if you're going to do that, because they don't require necessarily a block. I could put a single block in here, but I'm just going to color it with fabric because it will let me do that. And so I'm just going to take and do like I did before here. I'm going to choose a red, I'm going to choose a blue, I'm going to choose my purple and my green. And then I'm going to come back to my black, put it here, 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 and here. And then I'm going to do my borders, just the same as I did before. I just kind of did the opposite effect, where I have the purple here, I have the purple over here, the blue is here, so I'm going to put it here, and on the top I'm going to have a green. And I have basically the same quilt, only different. The color arrangement is different. I'm going to adjust my software again because I need to go up into the areas you can't see now, and so I'll be right back in a moment. Now I have added colors here, but because we're adding quilting lines in particular to these spots here, these blocks here, we may want to go ahead and lighten up the color a little bit, because the embroidery designs will come in black thread. And when you have dark colors like I like to work in here, or bright colors like these are, but they're still on the dark side, it's going to be more difficult to see the lines. So let's go ahead and just quickly put a lighter color in here for me to work with. Okay, and I'll go ahead and change up the border also, and I can change this back once I'm done adding the embroidery designs. We want to go to layer 3 because this is where you need to add them. You're going to use the Set Embellishment Tool, and it will open up the embroidery designs you have to work with. You add them the same way that you add any block or motif or stencil. You just drag your block to the window. Another thing I should add is, remember I said we had 4-inch blocks here, so this should be right around 4 inches. But if you want to see the size, you can use your adjust tool and come over here and select your block that you've just added. Because you're on this layer, it won't allow you to select these. It's only going to allow you to select what is added on layer 3. So here you have done this, and now you can look up here and you can see that this is almost 4 inches. Now you could resize it, but because they are embroidery designs, you can resize it all you want in the window, but when you get to the actual design, you shouldn't resize it. When as digitizers, we're told we shouldn't resize designs, not as digitizers, but even as a normal machine embroiderer. There is the ability to resize designs, but they recommend you don't resize designs, especially filled type designs or applique like designs, unless you're doing the whole design more than 10 to 20%. I personally have never resized a design that I've purchased. I just don't trust the ability, because while I know some digitizers are really good at what they do, other digitizers are not. And you don't know what software most digitizers use unless they put it on their website somewhere. You can guess at what some digitizers use, and like the Embroidery Library probably uses Wilcom, because it's probably the most known software of the digitizing softwares, and it's quite expensive, and most professional digitizers use Wilcom. Other favorites are PE Design. It's probably the second longest software that's been out there, as far as I know. I mean, it's been around for a really long time. There's Embird. All of the major machine brands have their own software. Bernina has its own. Genome, Viking and FAP both use the same software, even though they have different titles. They're still the same software. Bernina's software is made by Wilcom. That's actually the reason why I chose Bernina in the first place. And turns out I don't really like the software, but I still use it because it's what I know. I'm trying to learn other softwares now, but until I feel comfortable in those, I'll still use Bernina. So, like I'm saying here, I'm not going to resize it, but what I'm going to do is try and center it in the block so that it looks somewhat decent. And when I go to lay it out, I'll be able to just print it in place to get it where I want it. And there's just no real easy way here to get this to. I'm sure there are probably snapping features I could turn off or on, but I'm really bad at the snapping features. So I'm just going to leave it there for now. Let's see what here. Snap block to position and grid. Let's turn that off and see if that has any effect. Nope. Show grid, snap block. Snap block size to grid. Well, that doesn't go anywhere now. And that stays in place. So we'll just leave that be. We'll put this back to the way it was, and hopefully that'll work just fine. I'm happy with that the way it is, although I might have made this just a little bit lower, but it's cool. I mean, we're just demonstrating, and you hopefully get the idea of how to do this from that. And this is the wrong one. I want to go back to my set embellishments. So next I'll add this design. I'm just going to kind of put them all in place so that they're in place. And let's see, I chose that one already. And this one. And then I'll put this in place, this in place. Oh, that's a big design. Another big one. So maybe we'll take those out, because they're not really going to fit what I had planned. That's very strange because it wasn't that big before. So I know what I can do. Let's see, these are only 4-inch blocks. That's what's going to kill me. These are only 4 inches. So yeah, I guess I'm going to resize those others. Although I don't want to, I'm going to end up doing that anyway. Okay, so those are all set in place. Because these are 4-inch blocks, I don't really have to resize them. Remember that my blocks themselves are 4-inch blocks. So now come back here and I will bring these in. And if you do have to resize to make it work, that's okay too. But you should choose, and I'm going to just really encourage you to just really choose all of the same sizes or within a size range that fits the block size you want. So if you're only wanting a 4-inch block, then that's what you want to choose. And you can always resize it by coming up here and changing the size, and that will bring it in so that it's resized to the block size. I'm thinking here maybe 2. I don't know if this will work or not. But you can always set your block size to this also, and we can just see if that works. I don't know if it will or if it won't. It does not. So So I'm just going to resize these and I'll be right back. Okay, they're all now resized and put into their place. I'm going to quickly show you that I'm going to take and I'm going to change the thread color. And I'm going to know that the thread color changed because these are all obviously different colors. And so it's going to be pretty obvious because I'm changing these to a gray color. And as you can see, it doesn't like to work real well sometimes. Let's just kind of hopefully come in here a little bit closer and see if we can get that to work. Okay, so now we can come back and go to layer 1 and change our colors back to what we wanted so that we can see these better. Okay, so we want our purple, we want our red, our blue, and our green. And that looks pretty cool, don't you think? So, next is adding the borders. And I'm just going to go over this really quick. I don't think I'm going to go ahead and do all 4 borders because I'm already quite into this video in a long way again. So I purposely chose, I think this is a corner. No, this is not a corner. Oh yes, here are my corners. And is this my bow? No. This one must be my bow. Yes, okay. So I want to take this other one off. So what I do here is I can see that this is just a little bit wider. I need to make my borders just a little bit wider. So 3. I'm going to change them all to a 3 and I'll be right back. Okay, as you see, I've changed them all to a 3. I probably could have changed them to 2.5 and they'd probably be okay. And we'll just go and see about that. Yeah, see, I have plenty of room now where I can take, where I can take, and this is going to work fine in here. This is just really small. I'm thinking maybe I have a larger one. Embellishment tool. I want the embellishment tool. So this one's a little bit larger. So we like that one better. If we need the smaller one, we always have it to use as an option. So I want to show you a little trick. When you are working with embroidery designs and you come to the tops or the bottoms, because these are such a different size, you have a height and a width kind of thing going on. When you go to rotate them, like you're going to have to do to come down here, look at what happens. Uh-oh, that's a big deal. We don't want that to happen. But it's going to happen whether we like it or not. So how do we work around it? Well, hopefully you have some others in place that will tell you the size. But if you don't, you can always take and use your capture tool. If you have a print screen button on your keyboard, you can use the print screen button to copy the size. Now I use capturing software, and when I hit my print screen, the capture button is going to come up. And as you can see, here it is. I'm setting my region, and it's going to tell me the size of this embroidery design. So I'm going to adjust my software a bit so that you can see this at the same time. Okay, so as you can see the software here shows the image, and here I have the design. So now, because I know I'm going to need this for my side, I'm just going to take and I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to paste, and it's going to give me another one. And I have both that I need for this border. I probably won't use the two on the sides, but what you can do, and this is what I would do in this case, is I would take the design into editing software and I would split off part of it so that I could fit my whole border. But that's a whole different lesson and something totally different to do. So let's go ahead and rotate this now. We're going to rotate it, and as you can see, it's done its bit here again. So then we're going to come here and we're just going to adjust this. We're going to put the 2.465 down here where 7850 is, 2.465. And then we're going to come up here. We're going to change this one to 7.850. And if you were watching what happens to the design as I do this also, you can see that it's made the design back to its normal size. It's just rotated the way it should be. So now we can rotate it, and hopefully it works okay. What did I do wrong? Well, I didn't. It's just because it's outside of the window area. So here we are, and you can see that perhaps with the border in place, it won't look quite so bad. So when we come here to do the border, we're going to do another one of these, and then we're going to rotate it so that we can get it to work in this corner here also. And then we're going to copy and paste again and come up here, and we're going to rotate again. Oops. I'm going to pull this one down here so I can see my corner better. But as you can see, you just really rotate them. Oh, I have to opposite it also. I have to give it a little flip. And hopefully this will work. Oh, I'm not going to get what I want here. Am I? Oh, I am. So sometimes you might have to flip also. Okay, so here I'm going to do this again. I usually just copy and paste as I go, because that helps with the rotations. And so this time I think maybe I can just flip. Oh, no, I can't. I'm going to rotate it and bring it up here where it should work okay. I'm trying to center the bow and the design so that it comes to the middle area. And so then, as you can see, I can come over here, I can make myself a copy and just swing on over here, and and then here, make a copy and a paste, come up here, and then I'm going to flip these upside down, and hopefully that's right. No, that's wrong. I'm going to rotate to get them to look correct. I'm going to scooch them up. I'm using my up and down arrow keys on my keyboard to do this. You can do a little bit of rotation by pressing your control key and going in the middle here. You then see how you have this little circular thing by the mouse. When I'm hovering over one of these areas here, you can then rotate it just a little bit so that you can get what you want to happen. And that should help it to also get centered up. I discovered that little trick today when I was working on this. I really want this to be a little bit more centered in. So, and I can see that I need to flip this. I think if I just flip it, it will work okay. So, I'm having my bows center in. So as you can see, now I have what is a really pretty border with corners, and it's going to work out great. And it will stitch up very quickly because this is just a continuous outline design. And what I would do is I would have a hoop here, I have a hoop here, and hoop here. And then I would do my corners last, because the corners are the easiest, but they're also, you also need to be sure you get them lined up properly. So having the other borders in place first will help you to line that up. You can do it the opposite way also. You can do your corners first, because at the same time doing the corners first may help you to line up what is different between the actual border and the corner. You could also ask the digitizer if she would create for you a design in a large basting stitch so that you could create a sample first. Otherwise, I would recommend you stitch out just a sample even of the side border so that before you do it, you have some kind of a placement that will help you to place your border sides and tops and bottoms in place better. The sides and the top and the bottom are the most important placements. So you want to get those right in the first place. And so it's really, it's not like you can mark this with pencils and expect to have it line up properly in a hoop. You want to have some kind of ability to stitch it out first. So you could ask the digitizer you buy it from just by writing her and simply saying, look, would you mind redoing this design in a basting stitch for me? Just the outline edges so I can have a placement, so I can make a sample first, you know, without having to actually stitch out the whole design. And most digitizers, I think, would do this for you. Some of them might think it's a great idea and do it for their other designs, because quilters would really appreciate something like that, just to give them help lining up the placement of their borders, especially on on borders. It doesn't really need to be done with blocks or that kind of thing, but when you're dealing with border designs, it's really a great idea. So you want to keep this in mind. I'm going to scooch this over because I don't want any lines outside of my area, because that really screws with electric quilt. I'm going to put my fabrics back in place, and I'm going to change my thread colors back to the gray. And while this looks really pretty, I'm not a white border kind of girl. I really want to stick with what I know here. So I'm change these out, and then I'll be right back with the ending part of this lesson. And there you have it, a beautiful design on a beautiful quilt. I love it. I actually think I should stitch one of these out. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson with working with machine embroidery designs on your quilt tops. I hope you have a great day. I hope I've taught you something today. We'll see you soon with another lesson. Happy anniversary, Electric Quilt. Bye-bye for now.